Well, let us begin this unofficial meeting of the CAC and the board of directors of the Solid Waste Management District. Let's just go around the room and introduce ourselves. Been a while. That I have seen some of you. So let's start here.
Brad Lucas.
John Arnold.
Paul Lay.
Chris Winia.
William Goins.
Ryan Edwards.
Thank you all for being here. So we need to
There's
pursue
Julie Thomas.
Julie, and Julie Thomas. Hi, Julie. So we wanted to go over the solid waste management plan and see how we're doing implementing what we set out to do. So I think we can kind of scroll through the first part if hopefully everybody has this in front of them. Because the first part is just about our demographics, about the organization of the district, population and waste generation projections, recycling generation. And then there's a section on facilities. And here I think we're soon going to need an update because the Brumby facility is fine. And I'd like to just recall what we discussed in our last unofficial joint meeting. I think we talked about not updating the plan on a rolling basis, but rather checking it once a year. Is that right?
The conclusions that I had in my notes at least were one that we would officially submit any changes to the 5-year plan to the state. It would just be managed internally. There were different stances on doing the rolling plan versus not. That was necessarily a conclusion on how that would be approached. That was going to be discussion subsequently. Then I guess that really did.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we talked about was a form that the CAC has developed for tracking progress.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That was something I hoped to follow up with Tom about. He'll be back in a few minutes. He's monitoring the door, just because building doors are locked. So for access, he's making sure that it's accessible. So he will be back in a moment to be able to deal with that question. I guess to summarize, actually all CAC members were here, I think. So everyone who is presently here, no, I think Julie was the only one, Mr. Thomas was the only one who wasn't present at last attempted meeting. So yeah, I can also share that document. So essentially just a reporting document that the CAC put together to provide to the district to try to ease the reporting process into try to provide a consistent way to track progress on the 5-year meeting.
I don't think we need to review it again.
Okay.
Because we have limited time and we 36.5. So, but thank you for reminding us. So we will soon have another transfer station that will be adjusted. I think the meat of it is really the goals. So if we scroll down to solid waste problems and disposal of specified wastes, it's page 11 of the packet, page 10 of the plan.
It's also shared on the screen.
Thank you. And does it make sense to everybody to start at this point? This is really when we get into what we set out to do and what problems we identified, and we can talk about whether we've made any progress. So one was apartment recycling. So that's I don't think much has been done on that. Thomas here.
We do have the RFP out for apartment composting.
Yes. Yeah, so composting, let me see.
That's not the same as recycling, right? But it still reduces solid waste.
They are shared under a goal. It's the waste diversion goal number 3, seek and support expansion of recycling and composting services with emphasis on multifamily housing developments.
Mhm.
Very applicable.
Yeah, so we will get to that. So as far as the problems, we still have the problem that most apartment complexes do not offer recycling pickup. We still have the problem of construction and demolition waste. And that we don't have facilities here that offer recycling for those. Bill, do you know if Rumpke is going to accept any construction waste? Recycling?
For recycling, I don't.
So anybody feel free to jump in as I scroll through here.
What kind of recycling are you thinking about when you say construction waste?
Some of it can be reused.
Yes.
Well,
But I mean, there's always things you can do with lumber. When I think of it, I'm thinking probably fiberglass insulation.
your comment about.
With the restore.
Yeah.
Good question on that, if I may. There is one goal and objective that's on diversion. Number 2 is coordinate rerouting of usable waste. So I know we talked in the past about. So it's, yeah, under the goals and objectives under waste diversion. To coordinate rerouting of usable waste. One of the leading examples we talked about was construction waste, and it occurred to me, Restore is essentially a model of doing that, if I'm not mistaken, is that correct? It's like materials that are used and taken in and sold. Would that prohibit the district from being able to engage in like a similar type program if it already exists? And I think Restore is a private entity, right?
But they also
It's not
raise
profit.
money to help with habitat issues and people who are planning to build a habitat home, some of the equity hours that they can build up, they do it by working at Restore also.
Got it. Okay.
So I think I would be not happy to be in competition with them.
Right. I was just thinking, yeah, if the district were to play any role in attempting to coordinate rerouting of those materials.
Could be taken away from.
Right. Or would it have to at least be done in collaboration?
Maybe we could promote them.
Yeah.
Right, too.
Right, provide information that, oh, you're trying to get rid of this, well, what thought of Restore?
And then maybe channel off into a different direction, those things that Restore absolutely does not want. Yeah, can't use.
That would be like the bulky items that are just.
Well,
No
I understand
longer
what you were
something.
saying about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know enough about construction to know what materials could be recycled.
Well, you can recycle partial rolls of house wrap. Unused fiberglass.
Well, that's to reuse though, but it's not a material that can be recycled,
Yeah,
right?
okay. I'll shut up.
You don't need to shut up.
I wasn't thinking in the right direction there with what you were thinking.
I think one of the challenges with that type of recycling is that it's much like the district recycling, it has to be stored separated. If you get like a demo job, a contractor's just gonna grab everything and get rid of it as quick as you can. He's not gonna take the time. So you would really, new construction would be your best option for that. Because that would be clean, unused material. A lot of them pro forma, the construction jobs, they have just enough material though. Not very wasteful. That's definitely a challenge with the recycling of construction. I have seen it in other parts of the country where they have entire facilities that they haul this waste to. Once it gets to that facility, they'll go through it to pick out the usable material. But that's a large operation.
Do you happen to have any notion of the volume of infill materials that could be recovered? Even just a super ballpark?
I do.
Okay.
No guess.
Okay.
We're at we started with solid waste problem, this is what we're talking about, whether there's been any progress.
I don't have any problems with my construction. Think about not doing it.
So.
I guess we're on number 2.
Yeah. Do you have any input there?
Well, I mean, Bill was talking about, obviously, is the major challenge is actually getting people to get that material collected in a manner that is acceptable to somebody. Then you also have to have somebody that's doing. One of the biggest challenges across the board, when we face, particularly here with the student population, people come here from all over the world. Just because stuff is recyclable where you came, doesn't mean we can do it here. You have to have somebody that's accepting and processing that material reasonable distance to transport it to, otherwise it becomes cost prohibitive. But there are, I know that particularly on the West Coast, there are CD recycling. We can certainly do some research. See if they can't connect with one of those programs and get some information and see if it's something that we can try to undertake. Partner with a private entity and try to set up a program. CD free.
Well, I think that's part of the 5-year plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's identifying problems, but then some of those problems are not repeated in the action steps portion. So some of them,
Okay, I'm sorry.
it seems like we've just said,
We're not necessarily.
but we know that in the 5 years that we have, we're not solving, so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess then to that end, I don't want to put things out there or step on Bill's toes per se. I do know that, Rumpke has some thoughts and ideas about reuse and recycling. That, current disposal facilities in our area that may open up some possibilities down the road.
Tell us about it when they come through.
So moving on to yard waste. So there are composting options. So has there been any change? Does anybody know if there are more options now or if there's any collection options available?
I know that there's actually fewer disposal options. Fortunately, one of the composting facilities, I think, since we put this plan together, has had to close. Through nobody's fault, unfortunate circumstances, for sure. But there's one less facility available. To my knowledge, there's been nothing happening with regard to additional collection transportation options for that material.
Well, I think for the next point, we have some good news. The next one is waste tires.
Yeah, and we I think last July started accepting waste tires. We're getting them, certainly not in the volume that we had hoped and expected, but we are getting them. And the compliance department is reporting fewer tires in their remediation efforts. So How much of a direct correlation there is, I don't know. We have made some progress.
Very good.
How are you, dealing with the fires that you get in?
We're currently using a company called Liberty Tire. They'll tell you up front, you know, that they do not have the capacity to recycle 100% of the tires that they receive. They do recycle what they can get recycled, the outlets that they have, but some of them are. Things that can't be incinerated. They go to cement kilns. It's certainly a better option than landfill. I think some do wind up getting shredded. Have percentage or volume.
Is there another vendor that does recycle 100% or closer to 100% that we can look at?
I have to look. There are limited options, you know, in our area as far as somebody that's going to come get them from us. But we'd have to look.
Something to
We
keep
can
an eye on.
investigate that. For when we got the program up and running to start taking waste tires through the household hazardous waste. Liberty Tire was the vendor we were currently using for illegal dump tires, and they did provide best quote. We saw quotes and vendors to each one.
Right now, the South Walnut Street. Station is taking.
Yes, yeah, because it is unfortunately, it is something we have to charge a fee for, and that's in the facility we're set up to transact.
If somebody brings you a tire that's half full of dirt and mud, asking them to get it out.
Yeah, we do. We need full tires. We don't want them sidewalls cut out, bordered on full tires.
We had talked about maybe creating some kind of voucher system online so that people could perhaps pay something online and then drop the tires off at one of the other recycling facilities. Since there's not a payment mechanism.
Yeah, I haven't.
We talked about that with the-
We talked about one of the orange bags.
We did, but I think since we could do that, if we could do it with the orange bags, we could do the same thing perhaps with the tires.
I would need to check with our staff that services the sites as far as collecting batteries and electronics, and we would need to see what our storage capabilities at the facilities are, as well as our hauling capabilities to make the runs to collect. But it's certainly something that we can look at if we have the means to collect, store, and transport them.
All right. Moving on, illegal dumping. Last year was even worse, wasn't it? than what is in here for 2020. So I don't know. I mean, this is the part of the plan that lists ongoing difficulties. So I don't know that we need to dwell on this ongoing difficulty, but it certainly is still there. Fewer tires, maybe.
But then also we added a half-time person to help with the collections and the.
And those figures are reported for monthly. Fine.
Okay. And open burning?
I don't have numbers off the top of my head. I think that I want to say, because I don't have numbers and it's not on my mind, that it does feel like it's a little bit better. Certainly that's not that it's not occurring, but I think we're doing better. No, we do have situations like we just had, a few weeks ago, where we had a tornado go through the northwest corner of the county, and the state is looking at some variances to allow people to burn vegetative material. That's resulting from that storm. Which is, those do count in our complaint numbers. The complaint numbers are the calls and the complaints that we get, and sometimes those complaints are legal burns within what the law allows. Clean wood products, vegetative material, recreational ceremonial fires are allowed within reason, within the law, and if the smoke starts to irritate the neighbor, they call somebody and complain.
I think some of the burning that was discussed with what went on in the northwest part of the county. Green trees don't burn very well.
No, they don't, and
There are a lot of trees.
and I honestly, I don't know, where all of that sits right now. It wasn't something that, we're ready to start throwing matches down and the state had some conditions that they wanted, that they didn't want 100 different fires. They wanted to consolidate the material and limit the fires. Waves. Size. Yes.
Can I offer a little insight? I know that our emergency management director made contact with NDOT to get permission. If you saw the destruction and devastation there, you would understand why they have to do what they have to do. But she did get IDEM permission.
I just think it's gonna be an ongoing problem for some years. Because it has to dry up enough to make it so that we're really. But yes, something about it.
Curious if there are many calls that are actually legal burns. Is open burning still problematic enough to be considered main solid waste problems, or is it actually?
I would want to get some figures from the compliance department on how many of those things that they responded to, they find improper material in the burn line.
Okay, let us move down. So then we have disposal of specified wastes. And I don't think, other than the waste tires, has there been any changes here, Tom? We have household hazardous waste,
No.
used oil, white goods.
So and we certainly have not stopped accepting anything we previously accepted, other than the waste tire. I don't think we have any that's new material that would fall within.
Right. Now let's move on to the goals and objectives. Let's see how we're doing.
That's quick.
Yes.
I see you've got something for waste oil. Other automobile fluids such as inner grease.
Yeah, that's
Because you cannot, at least with the, transmission fluid at the local automotive repair shop. They're gonna tell you, we can't recycle your oil if you put antifreeze with it. Right. So how are you handling that?
all of our facilities have separate containers for used oil and then used antifreeze, and our household hazardous waste department take about any home.
Okay, transmission fluids.
But not, it's mixed with antifreeze.
Well, we can still take it, we just can't get it recycled, and wind up going for disposal. And
How's the proper way to dispose of it?
I would have to ask her to determine.
Probably the incinerator and everything else.
No, well, Heritage has their own incinerator, and then they also have a hazardous, multiple hazardous waste landfill. It was, Heritage's facility was the one identified with the train wreck.
Okay,
Oh,
it's definitely a train wreck.
oh, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, quick plug for the district's website, especially with respect to your question, Paul, there's abundance of very clearly organized, if I may say so myself, information on accepted materials at all of the district's locations. So there's your automotive and options.
Good. Anything else before we move on to the goals and objectives section?
Then you're moving on to the next.
Yeah, if there are no other comments. Okay, so the first section, education. So, and these are things that I know the CAC worked on creating these goals. If, Joe, if you want to take over from here and kind of go through, since you probably had better in mind with the details. I know later in the appendix, I think there are some details, but if you'd like to be the one to review this, that would be great.
Can do that. I think I'll maybe start, sorry for all the questions, Tom, but it would be a question for you. Following up on the reporting.
So the
All that.
reporting document.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that, we have not got that in place yet. I played around with the Google Docs and I just, that's not gonna work for all of our staff. But I think I can just convert it to a traditional Excel spreadsheet. Put that in a shared drive on our internal network that everybody would have access to. So hopefully here in the very near future, we can get that document available to everybody and start utilizing it.
that would be wonderful. That would be a great benefit for this review process as well, because then it would just be compiled in one place, what the status of all of these particular items are, because there's essentially the point of the document and the way it's laid out is just to be able to have all of these items, have update sections within them, just have a running history, perhaps on an annual basis of just all the status of each item. I went through right now and let's see. Perhaps another good question I mentioned at the CAT meeting that scale of waste reduction specialists on programming and reaching out to communities that have similar programming to what they achieve. And it sounds like mainly work reduction goal outreach. Would you say that's primarily the goal that a current waste production specialist activity is geared towards?
I think that's one component. I mean, source reduction is one component of what we're trying to put together to take out to the local business community. There's a variety of ways that a business could approach waste reduction. Beginning with source reduction on the front end. But we're also looking at, processes. Can we make processes more efficient? A quick spread. The Subaru plant up in Lafayette. It's the first net zero landfill car manufacturer in the US. And I had an opportunity to talk with some people up there a few years ago. One of the things they did, they looked at the way they were cutting their sheet metal, and they realized that if they changed the way they cut their sheet metal, they could get an extra piece out of it and have less waste. And that was one of the things that they did, to move toward waste reduction, toward zero landfill. There's a variety of ways that businesses can go about, looking at waste reduction, and we're trying to hit all of it. Not everything's going to work for everybody. We want to present them with as many options, as many strategies as we can, and then help them figure out what works best for them.
I suppose you happen to have off the top of your head any other goals or objectives from this particular set that.
I can, education number one, Elisa has started working on some documentary style videos. And that's actually sitting on in me right now to review and get back to her on. So that is, those videos are something that we're working on putting together, with regard to, QR codes and stuff. Not sure where we'll get with that, but, certainly I'll look to get those videos finished up and on our YouTube channel and things that we can post on Facebook, and get them out that way, until we, figure out if we're able to put QR codes together and post to the sites or something. We are at least working on those videos. Number two, the district website, obviously that's something that is kind of pending as we look at the rebranding and see what direction that goes. And then, once we figure out the rebranding, obviously the website would be something that we would need to look at, whether the brand changes or not.
But the website was overhauled since this plan came out.
It was, but it's
We're
been.
making progress already.
Yeah, and the website has been in place pretty much unchanged, for a year or so now. And so now we've identified some deficiencies, some things that aren't working like we'd like to. There's tweaks that can be made, even if we're not gonna, go with a full rebrand. Like Ms. Piedmont Smith emailed me about one reason.
Well,
We need people like that.
No good.
Obviously, number three. That's rebranding, that's working on that. Four is probably not something we have a whole lot of progress on beyond what we initially doing. Plans put in place.
but that's something that Kayla could work on as well.
Yes, yeah. And I will say, and Kayla has actually produced some internal documents for staff to reference that are very beneficial to some of our staff members, so we're doing some of that internally. Let's see.
Now, do you think that education number 4 will be also part of just the initiative that you mentioned that Kayla's been working on in terms of building up that information?
I think it can certainly be part of that. I also think that it's something that, once we get rebranding figured out, there's gonna be a big push. If we wind up with a new name and a new logo and a new slogan, obviously there's gonna have to be a push to get that out.
Sounds like the education category is moving along and has already some big steps done in it. It's exciting. And why it's the one that's listed first, 'cause it's really important.
That is listed first again under source protection.
Indeed. Education.
So I first looked at that, and I saw board education. I said, I do that every month.
It's a never ending job.
My dad used to do it every day. I was the student.
We'll check the board. We're just using it.
Yeah. Not so. Because we needed it.
Yeah, but source reduction as far as just broad education in general, I think, that's something that we'll do better at. Kayla has things up and running, and that'll obviously be a part of her. It is something, that we currently do through our existing education efforts. We have a lot of stuff that hits social media, lots of videos on the YouTube channel that encourage people to consume less. Source reduction in essence, and certainly things that we can do to look at, for a better reach or a more impactful message, but it is something that we are doing.
But I think just even creating a position. Places, meeting some of them, something else.
Did you say that, what, in which ways is this message to consume less? Broadcast?
Well, it's on our YouTube channel. It is in, there are some of the TV commercials that we do. I don't know what gets in rotation. I have to go look at the monthly board reports to know what's in rotation when, but we do have some of those commercials that rotate through that cycle with Comcast that hit on that, and obviously social media posts. Do a lot of social media posts around holiday time with people.
Consumerism ramps up.
Have you considered doing some of the spots like that with I don't know how streaming TV? I don't know how any of that works.
We do part of our package with Comcast, what they call premium digital, which is when people are doing, if they have Comcast cable and they're watching something on demand that's not commercial free, that's the premium digital slots fall into.
I happen to see a commercial. I just hit my TV through my wireless internet. But I had to see a commercial for a local
Right, and that
place. That was the first time I'd seen one locally here.
yeah, and if your internet is through Comcast, there's a chance you could see one of ours. Now, getting into the other service providers is something we need to look at.
Mine would be through my telephone.
Right, whether that's Verizon, AT&T, Smithville Communicating, there's obviously a number of them that operate in the area. But that's something that we need to look at, expanding beyond just one.
The bars is though that we sign up separately. If they don't offer the TV.
Right. But there are still. That's, I have internet through Smithville and we just do the streaming TV stuff. That's all one of the mayor candidates has. So it does still hit. We have to figure out how to get in that market.
I have a general question that you may not have an answer to. I know there's this building of the waste production specialist position. Do you have any notion of at what point it will be sort of like built and be able to be in like a running state versus a state? Just to have an idea of like, maybe these are things we can come back to more specifically, like at the start of next year, just to give time.
I can't sit here and tell you we'll be out there pounding the pavement on businesses on July 1st. I can't say that at this point. By this summer, certainly would most definitely we want to be out and about by the summer. But like I said during the CAC meeting, she's made some good contacts to see what information we can get them to share. There's a community program in the Champaign-Urbana area that she and I are going to try to go visit, see in person what it is they're doing. We're still gathering that, figuring out what's going to work in this area, different industries, different businesses in different places. But hopefully the backbone of it is similar enough that we can easily apply things to our area. I would hope that by summer we're at least in a position where we're comfortable, that we have something to offer.
Part of acknowledgement that it's going to be a significant process and take a lot of time, than like a pressure to be out there pounding pavement.
She has been working with our Green Business Network coordinator and gonna try and sooner than later start exposing our just our GBM clients and working with them. And, you know, since that's somebody that we're already doing something for, easy to put in the door and a good way for her to get her feet wet and get an idea of what's out there and
That's great. Yeah, thinking of it in terms of items 3 to 4 following the source production category, the dialogue with major community stakeholders and local political engagements. Those are things I imagine coming further down the road. Yeah, just for the very reasons that you mentioned. Yeah, that would wrap up source educator, source production, excuse me. Lots of the diversion category, again, with education, still in the category of already done. Up to moments ago, or I guess towards the beginning about coordinating, rerouting, usable space. Yeah, I imagine that being a bigger task. Require more establishment in the whole and capacity to do so.
But I don't want to, sell our existing efforts short. Our materials for the arts program uses a lot of material. That might otherwise go for disposal. Don't discount what we're currently doing, but we're certainly going to try to.
But you also have the curbside stuff where people can share things.
Yeah, all the facilities have small reuse component to them where you leave your books or kids' games or whatever that you're done.
Were you in the room, Tom, when we were talking about restore and that perhaps the district staff could refer people to restore if they come with.
We do all of it, yeah. Particularly a lot of people that call about, do you take this in bulky item? We do, but if it's still good, might try Restore, Salvation Army, Goodwill, they might take it as well.
Just like that can go a long way in terms of getting understanding of what the other options are as a community for reusing things rather than trying to dispose of.
Does anybody know anything about reusing rugs or carpeting? Or recyclable?
They are, carpeting is recyclable. It's logistically, financially, it's not something we've tried to undertake. The closest carpet recycler I'm aware of is in Indianapolis. I'm not that familiar.
Particular type or
Yeah, I know.
know.
I don't. The big one I'm aware of is down near Atlanta. But the carpet is a material that's recyclable. These days, a lot of the carpet that's out there is a good percentage recycled plastic already. And that's something that we can look into, but where, how would we collect it? Where would we store it? How would we transport it?
I was thinking more to make referrals, especially and to get the word out to.
Yeah,
people who own a
carpeting.
lot of carpets.
Carpeting, I don't know, but I think a lot of those places that we're familiar with, St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, Goodwill, they'll take area rugs if they're still decent. Obviously all those places have criteria. They're not going to try to pass junk on, to somebody. It still needs to be in decent shape and usable product.
How much cat puke?
Criteria. I'm glad one of the dog scratch.
Those organizations are going to be a deal with steam cleaning something.
There's we talked a moment ago, I think while you were outside still, Tom, about seeking, number 3 for waste diversion, seek and support expansion of recycling and composting services with emphasis on housing developments. Talking about the RFP for composting services, but that's on multi-family housing developments. Huge step on that one. That's recycling, department recycling was actually the first. Nice problem listed that there. That's good. I don't, it's a significant. initiative.
Statistically, that's just the top one. Complex in essence has gonna have to go parking spaces. Have bins to do recycling. That's a tough one. And we do have, multi-dwelling composting RFP out, and those responses are due Monday. I have at least one respondent that I have had some back and forth.
Yeah, I am, for the apartment recycling, I think that it's kind of a red herring to say that, oh, it can't be done because they have to give up parking spaces. I mean, I've been to these apartment complexes, there is a lot of extra parking in those stuff.
Oh, there is. The cynical part of me wants to put that back onto the city and the county and their planning department and say, when you approve the things, make sure they've identified where the recycling bin's gonna go.
We do now, but I mean, it's the old ones that
Oh, right.
still exist, that
It's the old ones. You're right, they do, but I would also, in many cases, those complexes are also in a situation where they were granted a variance to have less than the required number of spaces, even though they haven't filled them. So I don't know how regulating agency would act when you say you're already 10% below and now you just took 2 away to add an extra couple of bins for recycling.
but again, that's a small minority of apartment buildings that has that variance. We, last year, didn't you, or maybe it was 2 years ago, with the executive committee, we had talked about a possible downtown drop-off spot. We kind of looked around at what property might be available, and it kind of petered out from there, but
It did kind of peter out, there weren't a lot of available options, and certainly for the district to purchase something was financially not really feasible. And I think that's where it kind of petered out and didn't inquire too much about leasing options. We also don't want to be in a position where we spend the money. It's not going to be set something up like we currently have. It's not going to be cheap. We have to have the power to run the compacting units. We got to bring the compacting units down there, and to do that for a place that we're only going to have for 5 years doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, at least the direction it was going. That, I guess, maybe the direction I was pushing was that I do like the idea of the district. If it does pursue anything with partner recycling, that would be sort of a lighter involvement to try to coordinate something rather than to actually provide an entire service.
And the other big hiccup or obstacle there is our current solid waste disposal agreement from contains the host. They would have to grant us a waiver of that clause in that agreement to establish.
wait, the current agreement was Romkey?
I'm sorry, with Republic.
Okay, I was gonna say,
We're negotiating that current agreement. Yeah, like the current agreement with Republic does have a prohibition in there against either entity establishing an additional.
you talked at one point about like a traveling, like a truck or a couple trucks that could go from
Under your.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
the mobile library.
Yeah, so like, they would treat all like big ones like once a month.
Yeah, we did look at that for a little bit. I'm honestly not sure. I would have to go back and find notes and stuff. But where we wound up on that, I know we had, You know, one of the options we looked at was a trailer that we would pull behind one of the trucks or something. There was, you know, concerns about where would that be expected to go and kind of liability would we have if we clipped the car turning the corner? You can get, we can get separated roll-off boxes. We don't have the roll-off trucks, we have seen drivers. And I want to look on what you can get. A box truck, or we could, it is retrofitted, or we could retrofit a box truck with the separate containers. It'd be a matter of, like, you know, we don't have CDL drivers. We certainly aren't paying enough to get a CDL driver. But we do have box trucks that we run on the green business route that don't require a CDL to operate. It's something we can pick up and look at again.
I feel like I saw kind of what you're talking about, a trailer, kind of like a cage with different compartments in it. Maybe it's a fair one here, Monroe County Fair. I'm not sure if JB Salvage or somebody had it out there. That's what I mean, it's for recycling, art models, things like that.
They're out there. It's something we can pick up, we can go back.
Well, maybe, I mean, some of these ideas for new initiatives, maybe we should wait to see what happens with this. If we're gonna take a considerable hit in our budget, we probably need to just consolidate what we have and not try this new stuff.
I will note it's a few minutes past 7:30. I don't know if there's expectation around a 1 hour duration, but if there are any hard stops, just that. Be aware.
I thought this was scheduled until 8.
Is it the advertised time?
The advertisement doesn't give it that time. I think I sent the meeting, the Outlook meeting invite that went out, I think I did set till 8.
Okay. Make sure in case anybody was in need of departing room. But we also are over halfway through the objectives. Expanding the compost end user market. Imagine. Yeah, I don't know. Where any activity on that front. Or really be able to increase data.
You know, we haven't done anything specific to that.
Is reaching out to both the county and the city parks and rec, have we done that? Do we know where they get their compost? I think I may have known at some point for the city and
You know, and we went 2 or 3 years ago when we were putting this together, and we may have, but I don't recall. And if we did, I don't remember the answer.
I can ask city parks again.
Steph. Can jump on to final disposal facilities then. Something that it's already well covered is continued environmental safe post closure. Hearing the reports from the board meetings. It's clear that that's still happening. Yeah, I think we've talked in the CAC meetings a couple of times about recreational educational opportunities for the landfill or ways to be profitable. I think looked into it in the past for solar generation. Is there anything? Horizon or consideration presently?
It fits neatly into any of those 3, no, but I do know Mr. Paulson has been working with, I can't remember the fellow's name. He's gotten hooked up with somebody from the Indiana Division of Forestry, and they're looking at a plan to reforest some of that area along Silo Road. Obviously not something we can do in one chunk financially, but that, you know, they're putting a plan together, and we can do this much acreage this year, this much acreage next year, and see what fits in the budget. They're looking at reforesting that area along
That's IDNR,
forestry.
Indiana.
Forestry.
Got that wetland.
He's working with them and they come out and looked at it, so they know what kind of soil and weather stuff that and flooding that gets, identifying appropriate species that would be able to flourish in that environment.
That's great.
Cool.
There's been considerable reforestation of that. In the last 20 years. I mean, there's trees out there that they bend over, stuck them in this room. Where before, when I was driving school bus, there was nothing out there.
On the landfill or on the
No,
property north?
on the wetland part, on the south side of Anderson.
Oh, okay. Is that
Shiloh,
district property or?
I don't know if it's private property or.
We own area south of Anderson Road. We own this areas along the south of Anderson Road. A lot of it is already forested. I forget how many acres it is. There's private residence at the corner of Anderson and Salem Road, about 2, maybe 3 acres. All the rest of that we own down to the. Friend of ours too, and he's watched out on something. And he currently, at no cost to the district, he currently mows that twice a year and deals with the cattle.
Good. That's,
And there has been significant feed for activities. Side Shiloh ponds. So you tell me I'm gonna go traffic.
No, we don't do that.
Say traffic, not kill.
that covers all of the goals and objectives. I think two overall thoughts are that will be nice when the reporting document feedback comes back, if there's anything that we can do to ease that process or assist in setting up or anything. I think that will probably make this.
You know, I think we get that up and running, hopefully in the very, very near future. And I think, once we get staff comfortable using that, that'll make gauging progress much easier. I think it'll also give us some better ways to measure progress. And then we can get staff comfortable and to have that document that'll be very beneficial to change where we stand against our plan. Yeah.
Other thought is thinking about strategic planning. That was in the agenda for the last attempted board meeting in terms of if there were an annual joint meeting about the 5-year management plan review, if that would include a strategic plan for that year, or I guess what goals and objectives to prioritize. The outcome, I guess the objective or the intended, the desired outcome that year would be. No. There's much to be said about that at this point, again, knowing that the waste production specialist position in particular is still being put together. That. Yeah, there's probably enough of a load already that it will be difficult to build strategy around implementing these.
Well, to do it right this minute, but I think, I think we also have to look at the bigger picture, context that the environment, not the tree environment, the environment changes, the circumstances evolve over time. We're about to have a second disposal facility. Wasn't on the radar when our plan was developed. So, having the ability to not necessarily update or rewrite the plan, but to be flexible in what we focus on, or maybe even focus on things outside the plan because circumstances have changed and now there's different goals or objectives available. It's something we need to have the ability to do.
Yeah, I think it's good that we made this a 5-year plan. Rather than a 20-year plan or something that, and I think. I would agree with Tom that if we do a strategic plan for every year, that kind of curtails our ability to react to changing circumstances.
Well, I don't know about.
Or am I misinterpreting what you're saying?
I guess I'm not looking at, I'm outside of the plan, the 5-year plan, it is a guide, the guidebook in this. And we have that, and I don't see any sense in rewriting that, but as our circumstances, as the environment that we operate in changes, we're not beholden, nobody's gonna come down and fine us because we deviated from what's in this plan. So I say I agree with Joe that I think, an annual, whatever interval is deemed appropriate by the board to have the ability to sit down and do some strategic planning. Look at what is the current environment, what are the current circumstances? Does it make sense to focus on something different, or prioritize this goal over that goal? I think that's something we need to have.
So I totally misinterpreted what you said.
Well, but I think it's example, Joey Longfield is a last game. We don't have that, we in here, but it certainly, it's pieces of.
Yeah, that's not specifically in there, but I'm sure it would fall into one or more of those categories. But yeah, because, circumstances change all the time. We don't need to redo the plan, rewrite anything. We just need to have the ability to assess where we are, what the environment is, and we're still moving in the right direction.
I think I'm not, you and I are not far off, I think, in the way of thinking about this, because when Joe first said, should we have a strategic plan each year, I was worried we would spend a lot of time writing and planning something and less time doing.
I'll do this once every 5 years.
Yeah, let's.
We can, as a CAC, as a board, we can shift direction with, I just didn't want to spend a lot of time writing.
That was really the idea when I suggested that, was we have a 5-year plan, that's what we submit to item. But with the annual, what I was saying, in looking at it annually, was, okay, we did this, we really ought to move this from here up to there, or we did this way down here, what we were gonna do in 5 years, it's emergency, we had to get it done now, we did it now. That gives us the opportunity within our framework that we check that, okay, now, got that out of the way. What do we need to do? We didn't really do a good job of this, or on this, okay, so we can continue that. So it just gives us within our 5-year scope, okay, now we can add this, we might want to do this in year 6 or 7, so it's there for us internally, so that when it comes, okay, our 5-year plan is expired, now we need a new one. But we've already gone through a lot of what we're looking at to do. And, maybe take us 6 months to draft it, not 3 years to draft it. And notice I said draft it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with what Paul's saying. I would just add that the first half of that plan is completely irrelevant to what we do, but that is what those are required components by the state. And that's what takes forever to put together. All that demographic data, verifying who the haulers are and all that. That's for me, and I collect, the CAC did the bulk of the work on this. For me, it was the first half of that document.
I think both your points or your previous remarks, Tom, and Isabel, I also didn't imagine anything very prescriptive or very heavy in terms of a strategic plan, not like a new document that's very structured and very strict. but just to really to set up.
I think it's more planning than a plan.
Yeah, maybe that's
Yeah.
it's a better way to put it, just and again, not that it has to be. It has to be that was accomplished at the end of the year, but just to start the year saying, this is what, this is what we want to focus on out of this entire big 5-year plan. Is trying to work forward on these things in these particular ways. If that's not possible because of the dynamic of the environment, that's completely understandable, but at least it's better. I think it would be preferable to start the year with specific things in mind than having the entire 5-year plan be sort of a large nebulous thing that just has one end with everything, but to just sort of be able to say at the beginning of the year, we all feel like this is the best direction the district can go on these things. At least, yeah,
This year.
have the discussion about it, yeah, for that particular window.
That, yeah.
I think that what everybody vocalizes that is along those lines, that it would be good to just focus a little bit on planning and then to not make it very heavy or very strict or cumbersome.
And for me, as I think I've said before, having the plan and the budget already identified as 2 required joint meetings for the CAC. For me, for meeting scheduling stuff, that's ideal. There's nothing that says if something comes up, or the CAC can meet 10 times a year, they have a need to do so, schedule. But I have those 2 already set, and we don't have to worry about finding that second joint meeting in a given year.
Makes sense.
When Moses crossed the Red Sea, he had no vision of the United States Navy Seabees building a bridge. Things change.
I don't know what that means.
Well, the United States Seabees is a construction battalion. They build bridges and things, get military stuff from here to there. That's a little bit of problem, That's few as possible, thank you.
I'll be English. But I think, or would that require board action to establish, or just maybe board consensus?
I think just a consensus, because, if whether the board or CAC members that don't want to do it, they just not commit to attending, and if we don't have a quorum, we have a quorum, it's a meeting. I don't know why anybody would object to identifying, a plan review and strategic planning for the coming year. As a meeting, it's just a matter of scheduling and what people's availability is.
In terms of what the next official or joint meeting would be and contain, and the action that would.
It will be in July with the budget.
If that would be an opportunity to take action if needed on establishing the 5-year plan review as a second recurring.
Well, we don't have to do that at a joint meeting. I can take that up.
That's true.
At any one of their meetings.
Okay.
Gauge interest and see if there's a consensus one way or another.
No. I think that represents everything that I had at least to cover with respect to the vision plan.
Anybody want to chime in who hasn't said anything? Brian, John? Julie, you still there?
Yep, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Julie.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we're done.
Yeah. I think that was. Yeah, I guess meeting adjourned then.